Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Report. I'm Ron Poniewasz, Newcastle News Sports Editor, alongside Newcastle News Sports writer Cody W. Pattison. And we're going to talk about the college notebook that Cody put together for today's paper. Cody had quite a few names in the paper, led by Nalia Nogue. No surprise that Nalia is a Neshannock product. Batted 500 in her first season collegiately. Did all that, those put up those kind of numbers in high school. And what do you know? Freshman year, did the same thing in college at the Division I level too.
And MVP at Fordham after that season concluded. Great season by Nalia Nogue.
44 games, they were all starts. Let's go transition to another girl in softball, Sarah Siemens. She played at Pitt in fifth-year senior, I believe she was. First baseman, 385 average, 13 home runs. What a season for Sarah Siemens at Pitt, and again at the highest level.
Yeah, a Union graduate. No shortage on Union stars when it comes to softball, that's for sure, and especially a great way to wrap up, fifth year at Pitt.
Any other softball players that you have in mind that you'd like to touch on?
Mackenzie Lattis, she had a great showing this season, and also you might know that she was on Laurel, and she played alongside also who had a great season, Brooke Atkins, both WPIAL champions as well.
Right, yep, absolutely. Let's transition over to baseball, and Westminster College had quite a few kids on its team this year, including Nick Vital and Jake Vital. And before we go too far, I'd like to thank Christina Vital for submitting the two photos of Nick and Jake for us. So again, thank you for that, Christina. And Cody, just your thoughts on what Westminster did this year on the diamond, especially led by a lot of the local products.
Yeah, there's a lot of local talent. Obviously, it's a close proximity to Lawrence County, so you're going to get that. But it was great. You mentioned Jake. Jake pitched the most innings out of anyone this season there. So kudos to him. Obviously, rest up that arm for next year.
That's right. Okay, Grove City College had its own Sylvester Ritter on the diamond this year. As we all know who Sylvester Ritter is, that's the junkyard dog. And that is Shane Cato. And as we know, Larry Kelly calls everybody a junkyard dog. So everybody's Sylvester Ritter in this world. And Shane Cato batted .316 with 4 home runs for Grove City College. He is a Shenango product. Any thoughts on Shane Cato and the numbers he put up?
It's slipping me. What year is he again?
He's I believe a freshman. I believe. Yeah,
freshman with 4 home runs right off the bat there. That is very impressive. Getting at the plate is one thing once you jump from that high school level to the college level, but to get at that plate, 4 home runs recorded, that's obviously special.
Freshman or sophomore? He's
freshman or sophomore.
Yeah, he's very young in his collegiate career for sure. Any other baseball players that you want to talk about?
No, not really. I was just thinking, I have so many in my head. As you know, the college notebook is very long. I went on an extensive search for people, and sorry to anyone if I missed you. Just write me an email.
Yeah. Track and field. Let's talk track and field. Hannah McDaniel was one of the many track and field products that you talked about. Mention any of the track and field runners, competitors.
Hannah, obviously her friend Jordan Razminski, both from Mohawk, and Hannah did have a great time taking that 4x100 team to the school record at RMU. RMU has a pretty good track and field team as is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's the college notebook for the Sports Report. I'm Ron Poniewasz. He's Cody W. Pattison. We'll see you next time on the Sports Report.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other, be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Report. I'm Newcastle News Sports Editor Ron Poniewasz, joined by James Dotson, a member of LCAP, the Lawrence County Sports Network. And welcome, James, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks. Glad to be back again. It's a lot of fun.
And James has a new addition to the family recently, a baby boy. Congratulations to James and your wife and the family. And hopefully all is going well and everybody's doing well.
I appreciate that, Ron. Yeah, we're all doing well. It's I mean, timing was perfect right before summer vacation, but it was rough. We were down in Children's for almost 2 weeks, but everybody's good, healthy, and sleeping very well. Which, knock on wood, that stays.
And that was right around Indianapolis 500 time too, right?
It was the day of the 500, actually. So his middle name, first name is Zeke, middle name is Joseph, Josef, for Joseph Newgarden, who won 500 that day. It's first time in 30 years I've not been at the 500, so we had to honor it one way or another.
Okay, there you go. And James is joining us today. We're going to go over the WPIAL broadcast rights that just happened about a week or two ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And in short, LCAP and Lawrence County SportsNet, James Dotson and his crew, they do a great job of bringing video footage, games, coverage, radio broadcasts, what have you, to all the student athletes and the teams around the county. And there was some bad news recently, and the 5-year deal with the National Federation of State High School Associations, by selling a deal that's going to have exclusive streaming rights to all WPIAL postseason games, and that's going to start this season. James, it's just not going to be the same without postseason video coverage anyways. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the main word right there is postseason. So everything that we do, that Trib does, that all the other local stations and broadcast entities, nothing changes during the regular season. It's once you get into the district and then later on state playoffs is when all of that changes. But I mean, yeah, we had 153 total broadcasts this year. 60 of them were WPIAL playoff games. Another 20 some were state playoff games. So those are literally half of our broadcasts were postseason games that now are going to be partially affected with this new group coming in, and with NFHS Network being the exclusive holder. But that's just for the football and basketball. Honestly, we're still trying to wait for some extra details of what that means for, volleyball, baseball, softball, all of those championships, because Trib and formerly MSA Sports Network and formerly Nauticom for the last 20 years, they've been the WPIAL rights holders for all of the events throughout the postseason for all the sports. So now you have NFHS Network coming in, being the playoffs and championships host for football and for basketball. Yeah, that's going to take a hit for groups like us who have done this, and groups like Trib that have been the exclusive owners for over 20 years. But yeah, it's the other sports too that I think are the big question mark, at least in my mind, because right now we just don't know what's coming.
Yeah, and the monthly rate is $11.99, and the yearly rate is $79.99. That seems awfully high for fans that want to watch maybe a game or two games, and not so much be burdened with spending $80 for everything. Because if you invest $80, you better be watching a lot of live games to get your money's worth. It just doesn't seem like a very good deal that they're offering.
No, I mean, and let me just flash back to not this past winter, but the winter before that, when you had a state playoff game. I believe it was Southern Fulton against Union area, and NFHS cameras told Southern Fulton, yeah, we'll have the game. We have they were in partnership together. It's like, we have cameras up at Union and we'll broadcast the game. So they did. They broadcast the cameras at Union, Reimersburg. So people paid $12, as you just mentioned, to watch a middle school basketball practice. And when you go and complain to NFHS of like, look, I paid and didn't see a game, I saw a middle school practice, their response was, well, you paid for a month-long subscription, not just for one game. So like, those are the kind of stories that are a bit aggravating from what you have going on with this network already. And honestly, the part that gets me, Ron, more than anything, is the fact that this is a network that is based out of Atlanta, Georgia. They got the bid because WPIAL, 4 years ago now, they sent in, or they gave up the rights to all media and marketing rights packages and sponsorships to this Teal Properties Group, which is out of North Carolina. So basically, the WPIAL has like no say anymore in terms of anything dealing with sponsorships, rights packages, anything like that. So even if this is something that they don't want, they really can't do anything about it, because they're in with this deal with Teal Property. Teal Property Groups made the deal with NFHS Network. probably because that ended up being the best deal for them in terms of the money wise. So you have companies out of Carolina and Atlanta that are going to be in charge of what we get to deal with here in Western Pennsylvania.
What was the negotiations like on your end? Were you guys involved in that in any way? Because to me, it seems like you guys could have said, is this money over common sense? Because here's what we produce. These are the games that we have. We do a great job, and you do. And they do a bad job because they're showing constantly things that aren't what they're supposed to be. So it just seems like it's money over common sense more than anything.
It definitely feels that way. We had absolutely no insight whatsoever. I know that basically the Trib Live group, Justin LeBar, Don Rebel, that entire crew there with Trib Total Media, basically when it came time that this current contract was coming towards an end, they put in their bid like they do every 5 years to be able to continue their exclusivity for their broadcast. But in terms of like the local media, no, we had absolutely no discussion whatsoever. And so the way it worked with Trib, and again, formerly MSA, when they had all of these, is that, yeah, they were the rights holders, but anybody could still broadcast a game if you paid a rights fee or if you became what they called an affiliate, so an MSA or Trib affiliate. And that's basically what our network and what many, almost every radio station around the area, WKST for the longest time, WJST even back in the day, was part of this Trib Live and MSA network. And what it was, no, we didn't pay individually game by game that we were going to do, but we paid a flat fee up front. And that basically allowed us to broadcast as many of these playoff games as we wanted to, sort of thing. So we paid a fee. It was about $2,000. And we could then do video stream for as many games as we wanted over the course of a WPIAL playoff season that we wanted. If you weren't a Trib affiliate and you tried to do all 60 playoff games that we did, yeah, you'd be talking about $32,000 in rights fees. And all those rights fees are basically saying, if this football game, for example, I think the first football game we did would have cost $1,000. They're saying that by us broadcasting a game, that's $1,000 that's in ticket sales that would be lost. Okay, cool, whatever. The fact of the matter is, obviously, nobody is going to be paying $30-some thousand to do 60 playoff games. We'd be doing a lot less, which is what we will obviously be doing now with the new format. But it was a win-win scenario because the fact that we were willing to do those extra games meant that then Trib had more coverage and more content on their end. It was a perfect trade-off. It worked really well. And that was a system that has worked very well for both our kind of networks, Trib Live, the main network of the WPIAL, and the WPIAL as a whole. Here's, I think, the one that people don't really realize. It's been, I think it was 19 consecutive years, if I was correct, and I was talking to Don Rebel, 19 consecutive years, every single playoff football game was broadcast, either radio or video. The reason was you had affiliates like us who were willing to go out and do games. Say no Lawrence County team made football playoffs last year. We would have been in touch with Trib and we would have been doing a game. I think the Stowe Rocks game in the first round didn't get broadcast. We would have been going down there instead to make sure that game was on the air, that sort of thing. Those kind of cooperations and those kind of networkings are what really made this entire thing work. Heck, even in the COVID season, when they had every single basketball team in the playoffs and you could only have like 100 fans in some of those gymnasiums, they still found a way to get every single game on the air because you had groups that were willing to sacrifice and work around to make things happen. So it's a bummer because you can almost guarantee that a nationwide network out of Atlanta is not going to care whether all 60 games in the WPIAL first round playoffs are going to be covered.
Yeah, and if the NFHS is not streaming a playoff game, then any other service is available to step up and stream a game by paying a fee to the WPIAL and to the TPG, the Teal Properties Group. Is it the same fee, so it's double, or how do they determine that?
We have not heard what the new rights fees will be, and that's definitely a concern I think a lot of us have. So again, like for us, we had a deal that we could be able to say, hey, we're going to stream with you guys the entire year. Give us a flat rate, and then we can, be willing to do more and more games. Hopefully they come up with some sort of package like that as well. The issue I have, though, is I know somebody who is an advertiser for the WPIAL every year, and once Teal Property Group came in and was working with their packaging for this past season. The package that had been $500 for the last 10 years all of a sudden became a $3,500 sponsorship. So that's kind of the concern I think we all are having right now, is that are these rights fees going to absolutely skyrocket to a point where it's just not feasible for any one of our broadcast entities to potentially do that. And that's a shame, because in the end, personally, if it's me and if I'm NFHS Network, why would I care about any games before maybe the semifinals and then definitely the finals? That and NFHS is what has been doing the PIAA as the rights holders, and they've done for football. They've done semifinals and finals. That's it. Basketball, a couple of semis here and there, maybe for 5A and 6A, and then the finals. That's it. I've not seen them do a baseball or softball game in the last 4 or 5 years. So you're telling me that apparently those sports don't matter as much in the first round games featuring, Little Union versus Little Laurel, the most historic game in this area's history for football. They'd have no desire to cover that whatsoever. And yes, we could still go and broadcast it ourselves, but instead of being grouped up with the network in charge, we're just some randoms basically to them of like, oh, as long as you pay us the money, here you go.
Yeah, and being that the fee hasn't been decided yet, is there any guess of how much notice that you guys are going to get if they aren't able to broadcast? Will they have at least a week to figure it out, because you want to get advertising and things like that to sell spots? So we have enough time, or is this going to be 24 hours or something?
That's another great question. I mean, basically what we've had before. So we did have a game last year that we went to broadcast. We intended to broadcast, I should say. And then NFHS Network stepped in, and because they were the exclusives for the state playoffs, basically it's like, yep, you no longer can broadcast now, essentially. So with that, it ended up being that, excuse me, we basically started to get our sponsorships, trying to get them all lined up by Monday or Tuesday of that week before the game on Friday. And then we get an email, I think it was on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, saying that, hey, we are unable to do a video broadcast because NFHS Network was broadcasting. So it's a tough cycle, because basically we're preparing like we can, and hopefully we have a couple of days notice. But especially when you get into basketball or baseball playoffs where the games are 3 days apart, it's already almost impossible to be able to get, hey, game ended on Monday night. By Tuesday morning, I need to have something lined up to be able to say, okay, now I have sponsors. Now let me make sure I have a broadcast crew available. Okay, Tuesday afternoon, now I can go and put everything in to submit my request to broadcast. And by that time, it's the day before. Good luck even trying to actually prepare for the broadcast in that regard, in terms of actually knowing what the teams are on the field. But, hey, at least with us, we'll make sure we have the correct Union logo and not the Union Reimersburg logo in the state championship.
Right. Being in media, we both know how rigid the WPIAL can be, and even the PIAA. A lot of times you see stuff that says, under no circumstances do we want to see people posting video clips to Twitter or whatnot. So if NFHS is there doing their video feed, can somebody like LCAP or a newspaper outlet take video clips and upload it to Twitter and say, here's what's going on, here's 3rd and 10 from the 30, and it's a 45-yard play? Is that in fair play?
It should, supposedly, yes, as long as you're not going live, as long as everything that you post is delayed, and doing like individual Twitter clips here and there, like from the sideline, yes, so those should still be fine, assuming that everything else stays the same, which is what we have been told should be, is that everything's the same, but the payments are going to Teal and to NFHS, not to the WPIAL, not to Trib Live. So those sort of things should, yes, still be in play. But again, that's all starting very much to be determined at this point, until we actually get those numbers. Everything's kind of in limbo. And same thing, like this is the time of year where affiliates like us and radio stations, they need to start going out there and trying to secure sponsorships for next football season and then into the winter and so on and so forth. So you're telling me that I can't even guarantee knowing anything about what we'll be able to do playoff football wise still for a while. And I mean, how do I justify going to a group out there and saying, hey, Newcastle News, we'd love for you guys to come and sponsor for the upcoming football season, but we don't know if we're doing playoffs. It just doesn't work like that. So we need answers hopefully coming pretty soon.
Yeah. And you touched on the Laurel Union football game. So imagine if they are broadcasting a game like that, NFHS, would you guys be able to film the game and on a tape delay broadcast re-air it, or offer it for purchase, kind of like the PIAA does with their football and basketball, probably baseball, softball games? Put it up on your site and say, you can have it for $9.99 or whatever. Are you guys in play for that?
I mean, that's definitely something that we're going to be looking into for sure. I know with the PIAA broadcasts, again, I'm not sure if it's if NFHS does it, then you're completely off being able to do it whatsoever. But in terms of just regular broadcast, you can go on a tape delay. So say we were going a 12-hour tape delay sort of thing. Those rights fees are cut in half. So yes, that does make it so that we can get, highlight films or full archived delayed broadcast. Those are all definitely things that are potentially possible, but until we get those numbers for sure, we just won't know. And I think the biggest issue with all of this, Ron, is that so many have come out and talked about how attendance is down at all these games, and a lot of them are blaming. I think it's a justifiable argument, blaming the fact that you have so many of these live streams going on. But I just look at that Union versus Laurel game, even in a downpours, was still jam packed. That was by far our biggest football game of the year. The WPIAL semifinal games, Union and Neshannock were in, were our next two highest. Those were both packed houses. It's not like our having those games broadcast meant that all of a sudden we didn't have any fans in the stands. And how about the two Neshannock Mohawk games? I know you guys were at that for the boys basketball games. They were both legit sellouts. They could not fit anybody else in those gyms. They were our number 1 and our number 3 ranked winner broadcasts in terms of viewership. So you can't tell me that us having broadcasts is keeping people out of the stands, or that people packing the stands means that then our broadcasts don't get enough people to watch them. Good games, people are going to go to them no matter what. Baseball, same way. The Neshannock Avonworth game, we had 3,000 people online and not a seat available down at Pullman Park. So I just don't buy the idea that us doing these live streams is what is keeping people out of the stands, and certainly not keeping $1,000 worth of ticket sales from showing up on game day.
All right, James, anything that I glossed over or did not cover with you to this point?
I just want to reiterate real quick the partnerships that local affiliates like us are able to make, because especially when we were in with Trib, and Trib's main goal, not to make money, but to get games on the air and get coverage for these students. I mentioned how they had for 20 straight years gotten every single game on the air. Well, let's just look at what happened this fall, that something fell through at the last second, that all of a sudden the Union versus Burgettstown game wasn't going to be able to be broadcast. Well, me teaching at Union, and we had students from Union, not just Union, Laurel, Mohawk, Shenango, Neshannock, all had students helping at some point throughout the year on our broadcast. We had people who we trusted enough. We gave them a set of our equipment. They went down to Burgettstown. They set up and they broadcast a game from Burgettstown to make sure that we got every single game on the air. That's because of those kind of partnerships that we have between, affiliates like us and Trib, between us and the local schools, and even the other broadcast entities. I mean, sports radio up north, I can't tell you how many times those guys from Mercer County Radio have helped us out with broadcasts, or we've tag teamed on a broadcast. Elwood City Streaming has been great of, hey, you guys are doing that game? Okay, we won't. We'll stay away, but we'll make sure we get all the games we need to get on the air. And obviously collaboration with guys like you and the news of, relaying, sharing all this information, and hopefully those sort of collaborations keep on coming. But I mean, more than anything, it's the community support. And I think that's what gets lost in all this. When you have national groups, national organizations trying to take over in lower, smaller local entities, you just lose that personalization. It's the community support we got this year was incredible, Ron, because it wasn't 10 minutes after a game would end in the playoffs, I'd be getting emails and text messages saying, let me know what you need to get the next round game on the air. It's a lot more tight knit to be able to make those sort of things happen when you have a community from mom and pop store down the street willing to put up $100 for a broadcast, where you're not going to be able to get that sort of cooperation. I mean, you're not going to have a little store down the street go and call NFHS Network and say, hey, we want to get this game on the air, because what NFHS Network will do is what they have done for most of their games. They would literally call us or call Trib or call some other group in the area and say, hey, somebody wants the game to be done here in this area. Can you go and do it for us? So, I mean, instead of going all this wraparound and then me broadcasting a game for NFHS to get on their website behind a paywall, mind you. It could have been just us from the very beginning, where you can all watch for free and watch it anytime you want for free.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people might not understand, getting back to the advertisement stuff of it, if NFHS isn't doing a game and you want to pick it up, I think a lot of people might not understand that if you find out at the very latest hour possible the night before, it's going to be hard to get advertisers on the line. If it's after 10 p.m., I don't know how you go about doing that outside of sending emails. Because who wants to get a phone call after 10 p.m. unless you set something up prior in advance, like, hey, can we get you on standby if something happens? Would you be good for a second round game? Can we put you down for that? And then we'll call you first thing in the morning. I'm sure that's probably how it's got to be, or maybe you guys have even thought of contingency plans for that.
That's basically what it has become, that it would either be, hey, I already have the check in hand, or I have the blank check ready to be written out. Just let me know when it's official that you're good. And yeah, even the one that when we found out that the game wasn't good, said, well, all right, well, next game, I already have it. You have me down for however much money it was. Next game you do, just put me on for that one. That's cool. So there's so many different craziness parts that go into it, as you know, with from one day to the next, and getting the advertising and just being able to get coverage of these kids. It's tough to schedule whatsoever, but I mean, all we care about is getting these games on the air for the kids, and thankfully the community's been good for helping us to make that happen. We just hope they can keep doing it in the future. It's just a big question mark right now of what it's going to look like.
Yeah, and then you'll certainly be there broadcasting for radio at the very least, right, for playoff games.
For playoff games, yes, and even that is a new rights fee issue coming up, as now KDKA for basketball and for football are the main rights holders. But from what I understand, that is non-exclusive. So now same thing. Instead of working through one entity, the WPIAL and Trib, it's all right. Audio side is KDKA, and the video side is through NFHS. So figuring out how all that's going to work, and do I need to be affiliates both ways, one way for when we do audio versus video? It's a lot of headaches that I was enjoying June and July of not having to worry about that. But now you got me thinking about it big time yet again. And we're going to be thinking a lot until we get these things all inked out.
Yeah, for sure. It's coming quick. It's hard to believe we're almost in July, another little over a month, and we'll be talking about training camp starting for high school football teams.
Yeah, unbelievable. We have, I mean, when you have teams that have done as well as they've done this year, I mean, historic year for Union, obviously, Neshannock baseball and softball having big years, and their Spirit Championship at states again. Shenango, Laurel having great basketball seasons on the girls' side. It felt like it was nonstop, and you know what? That's great for us because it keeps us busy. But with that, and when you go until mid-June with the baseball and softball championships, yeah, that means it's a short summer. But you know what? I'll take that if it means that the County of Champions keeps bringing home some more medals.
Absolutely. All right, James. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully, things get resolved in the proper way, so you can bring coverage to everybody with through video and whatnot, and it'll be here before you know it.
It sure will. And let me just finish with this, because you did allude to it. If we can't do video in the playoffs, we're still willing to do audio. And in fact, 3 of our top 4 broadcasts of the year in terms of viewership were audio broadcasts only. So people want to watch, people want to tune in. They'll do it any way that they can. So we're glad to be able to do it for you, and we'll continue to do it for you as long as you guys help and support us along the way too.
All right. Thanks a lot, James, for joining us. He's James Dotson from LCAP and Lawrence County SportsNet. And this is the Sports Report. I'm Ron Poniewasz, the Newcastle News Sports Editor. Join us again for more talk on Newcastle Sports Report. Thanks, James.